We're going to start from Ayin Daled Amud Beis right after the Maisim where we saw the 21 stories. We're going to pick up from the Gata. We're going to go on a quicker pace till we get to Itmar by Svina in the Hey Amud Beis. Vayivra Elokim es hataninim agdolim. This is right before the two dots of Ayin Daled Amud Beis. It says in the pasuk that Rebbeinu Shalom created this big taninim. We call it sea monsters. Hacha and Bava Targimu Arzila Diyama, which is the Re'imim of the sea. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, what is this? Lev Yasan Nachash Bariach. This is the Lev Yasan, the straight snake. The Lev Yasan Nachash Al Kalson, and the curved snake. Shenamar, like it says, by Yoimahu, on that day Yifkad Hashem Becharbo Yakasha, on that day he's going to destroy everything. And it says, and regarding the Lev Yasan Nachash Bariach, and then like the end of the pasuk it says, V'harag Esatanin Asher Bayam. We're at the two dots, Simin Kol Shah Yardin. Amar Rav Yehuda Merav Kamasha Kadosh Baruch Hu Kamasha Bara Kadosh Baruch Hu Bailamai Zachu Nekeva Barim. Anything the Rebbeinu Shalom created, he created both a male and a female. Af Lev Yasan Nachash Beriach Lev Yasan Nachash Akalson Zachu Nekeva Barim. He also created the Zachu Nekeva. Vil Malein Niskakin Zelazeh Machrivin Kalayim Kulai. And if they would mate with each other, there would be so many and it would destroy the world. Samasa Kadosh Baruch Hu Sirius as Zachar. He was Mesaris the Zachar, and over here be Medayik V'harag. He dafka killed the nekeva. Umacham, we salted it, let's tzadikim la selavai, and Scheiner, like the end of the pasuk says, V'harag esatanin asher bayam. And Zaktig Mar Vaita V'af behemois bahare elef. What type of animal that was? That was an animal that was so immense in its size that it was able to eat 1,000 mountains, and it was a nace that as soon as they finished eating, grass grew right back. It was a miracle that happened. So it was a massive, massive animal. That Zachar and Nekeva Barak. Over here, be medayik that he was Messiris the Zachar, Sirius the Zachar. However, it says Vitzinain. He cooled off the Nekeva. It doesn't say Harag. The Gemara is going to question this. V'shamar letzadikim laselavai shenemar like it says Hinina. Behold, you should know Kayach b'masnav. Its Kayach is in its lines. Rashbam says Shaloi hitil zera miyamav. Zeh Zachar ve'ainai b'serire bitnai. And its power, it's in the belly, its navel of its belly. Zunakeva. Again, the Rashbam says, Shelo Yolda, never gave birth. Hasanami Frektig Mara, Lisarsa Lizachar, Vilitzin Nekeva. Why did we have to kill by the Dagim? Why did we have to kill the Nekeva? For the Gemara answers, Dagim Pritzi. Since they're pirates, they couldn't control it. Even if it would be Mitzanin, it wouldn't help. Frektig Mara, Vilabid Hivcha. But why are you killing the Nekeva? Kill the Zachar. Iba Sema, and the Gemara answers, Nekeva Milichi Mali. The salt in Nekeva is much better. Iba Sema, Kimi the Chsiv, since it says in the Pasuk, Lev Yasin Zeh Yitzar to L'Sachak Boy. Since it has a Lashon Rebbeinu Shalom plain, Bahad in Nekeva, Lav Urach Ara. We find this also at the end of Ashutrim, where it talks about Miriam Meis Ben Ashika. Again, we also don't want to say Ben Feirush, because Lav Urach Ara. Mara questions, Achanami, Limlechel, and a cave. Why were we mitzanin? Why don't we just kill the cave and salt it? Mara answers, Kavara, Melichi Mali. By regarding Dagin, we can salt it because it's good. Besara, regarding this behemois, Bahari Elef, Melicha, we would salt it, Loi Mali. The Gemara continues, Vaita, Vam, Review, Damarab, Beshashi, Bikadash, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Levaris, Ayla, Amaloi, Lesar, Shal Yam. He tells the Sar of the oceans, Psach, Picha, open your mouth, all the waters in the valley, like that, we could create lands. It's good enough that I'm busy with my own, with the rivers that are coming in. Miyat, what happened? Miyat immediately, but by the Hargar, the Rebbeinu Shalom killed this Sar. Shenamar, like it says, Bekoichai, Raga Hayam, Uvisunasai, Machatz Apov. I knew he split the sea with his koyach, with his might, and with his understanding, Machatz, Lashon to hit. The smite lashon rahav. Rav is the lashon gaiva we find. Amar of Yitzchak Shma Minas El Shayam Rav Shemai. That's his name. Yilmol Mayim Mechasim Ma'isa. If not for the water covering the sar, Ein Kol Beria Yechayla Lamoid Bereicha. No one could withstand its smell. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, Lo Yirau Velo Yashchisu B'Chol Arkachi. They'll neither harm nor injure my holy har. Kemayim Liyam Mechasim Atukri Liyam Mechasim Ella rather L'Sar Shayam Mechasim. Amar review them Rav. Yardim was Yotzim in Mars Pamayis, Tanya Namehach, the Yardim Yotzim Mars Pamayis, Vahalach, and Mahalach, and it continues till B'Yamashal Sivichiv, Yamashal Tavario, Miskal, and it continues V'Yoyred L'Yamagodol. What happens B'Yamagodol? Miskal, V'Yoyred, Acha Megia, until it gets Lepiv Shal of Yason. How do we know this? Like it says in the pasuk, Shenemar Yiftach Ki Yagiach Yarden El Piu. He's very calm because the Yarden is going to his mouth. Frektimar, this pasuk is not talking about the Levyason. It's talking about the Behemois Bahare Aleph. Maskal Rabba Rula. Hi, this pasuk, the Behemois Bahare Aleph Sif. It's talking about the pasuk of Behemois Bahare Aleph. Elam Rava. Rula Imasai Behemois Bahare Aleph Betuchais. When is this animal calm? Bezman Shemagir Yarden Bepil Shul Levyason. And the Rashbam says, why? Because we're going to see lots of love. What's going to happen is there's going to be fights between this behemoth Bayer Aleph and the Levyasan, and they're going to fight each other very stark, and they're both going to end up dying. So we see if he's busy drinking the waters, he's not going to be fighting with this behemoth Bayer Aleph, therefore he's calm. Simin, Yamim, Gavriel, Rav. We're going on a quick pace. Like it says in the pasuk, Kihu, Al Yamim, Yesada. The Rebbeinu Shalom founded. We're talking about the Eretz Yisrael. With seeds, with the sea, with the Hairis, with rivers. Yechanan is going to establish it upon the rivers. What is this? Elusheva Yamim V'Arba'an Hairis. It's the 7 oceans and the 4 rivers. Shemakifin is Eretz Yisrael. Ve'eloin Sheva Yamim. These are the oceans. V'Yam Shel Tverya, V'Yam Shel Sedaim, V'Yam Shel Chilas, V'Yam Shel Chelsa, V'Yam Shel Sivichi, V'Yam Espamya, V'Yam Agadol. So those are 7. Ve'eloin Arba'an Hairis. It's the Yarden, the Yarmuch. Kirmioin Ufiga. Yosef Dimar Memyainason Asan Gavriel. Lasa is Kenoigim Levyasan. The Gavriel is going to hunt the Levyasan. He's going to fight him. Shenamar, like it says, when Ayin Hayam and Aleph. Hasim Shoich Levyasan Bechika. You're going to try to get this Levyasan with this like a fish hook. Ubechavel Tashkiel Scheiner. And you're going to plunge in a rope into its tongue. Vil Malak Kadosh Baruch Hu. Israel, after Rebbeinu Shalom helping Gavriel. Ein Yachal, he wouldn't be able to. Shenamar, like it says, Isa, which is the Rebbeinu Shalom, the maker. Yigash Charbi is going to take out its sword. We're talking about the behemoths. Dr. Shbam Batson, this pasuk is talking about the behemoths Bayer Aleph, but Huadin, we're going to schlep it to the Levyasan. Zakting Mar Vaiti Yosef Dimam Rabbi Yochanan B'Shah Shel Levyasan Ra'ev. When this Levyasan is hungry, Mitzi Havel, its breath, he takes out this bad breath out of his mouth, Mipiv. Umartiach, call Meimash Metzula, all these deep waters, Gad Martiach, Lashon froth, Lashon bubbly, Shenemar, like it says, Yartiach, Kesir Metzula, like the pasuk very clearly says, that it's going to make it Yartiach, a Lashon frothy, like a pot. Vil mole machnis roishel Gan Eden. If not, the Levyasan putting his hand in Gan Eden. In kolberi yechol lamed bereich. How do we know this? Shenemar, like it says, Yam Yasim Kimrakacha. He makes the ocean mamish like a place of perfume where they make perfumes. Why? Zokter Eshbam, because he put his head mitoich shehechnis roishel leGan Eden. Now it's when he's hungry, the Levyasan, when he's thirsty, v'shashitzamei oiset tlamim bayam. He makes these big forwards. He's taking out so much water. Shenemar, like it says, acharav. Ya'ir Nisib. After it makes its patch shine because there's so much missing water. It takes 70 years to get back this ocean the way it looked. Shenamar, like it says, Yachshoiv Tahaim Leseva makes the deep sea like what? Like Seva, like an old person. We all know Vein Seva, Pachas Meshivim, 70 years old. You have the lachas of Nei Seva, Takum Bechule. Omer Rabba, Am Yechanasa Kadosh Baruch Hu, Aset Suda Latzadikim Yibsar Shalav Yasoin. He's going to make a suda from this Basra, Scheiner, like it says, Yichru Olav Chaverim. The Chaverim, which you're going to see, his companions, they're going to eat, they're going to feast upon it. They ain't Kira. They ain't Kera. How do we know Elisuda Scheiner, like it says, Vayichra Lahem, Kera Gdel, going to make them a great meal. Loshen Kera, Vayichlin, they're going to eat. Vayishtu. Vein Chaverim, Ela Tamid Chachamim. Also, Loshen Chaverim is a Tamid Chacham. Scheiner, like it says, Hayosheves, Baganim Chaverim. Those who dwell in the gardens, Chaverim Akshivim, your friends, your Tamid Chachamim, listen, like Alecha Shmeini. So again, even Yakis today, we call it Chaverim. We call someone up to the Torah, the Yakis would say Chaver. V'hashar, and the rest, what do we do? Mechalked Oisav Oisim by Scheiner, by Shaykir Yerushalayim. We put it for the merchants in Yerushalayim. Shenemar, like it says, Yachtzuhu bein Knanim. We divided between the Knanim. Bein Knanim el Tagerim. Knanim mean merchants. Shenemar, like it says regarding a Knan, a merchant. Knan b'yadu. What does he have? Mazne mirma lashoik Oisav. He loves to steal. He has regarding this Knan in his hand a full scale and. He loves to steal. Like it says in the pasuk, Asher sechayreha sarim knanin nichbedei aretz. Like it clearly says regarding reparting the city of Tzur, its peddlers are what? The Sarma princesses, and the knanim, which is the merchants, nichbedei aretz, are the honorable of the Velt. Now we're going to have those sukkah latzadikim. We all know this. The last day of Sukkot, we say this. All these tefillos. Ma'ayra shalav yasin, like it says in the pasuk, hamismale besukas. If you look, it really says it with a sin. They switch it. Hamismale besukas ayra. So zacha aisen lesuki get a sukkah. Lai zacha aisen leitzel. You only make a shade, and the Rashbam's machalik that a sukkah has hainu melamalagag, and you have 4 walls around the ruchos. Mashenkin tzel is just a sikuch beloy mechitza shenema, like it says. Ubetziltel dagim raisha. Their banishalim's talking like that. Like can you really make a fish shade out of its head? So zacha aisen leitzel lai zacha lo aisen lo anik. He gets a necklace, like it says in the pasuk shenema, like regarding an accessory of the head. It says necklaces va'anokim legarisecha, necklaces around your neck. Vashar, what do we do? The rest. Parsa kadosh baruch hu achom yisraelayim v'zev mavik misayf oilam atzayfin, like it says in the pasuk shenemar v'holchu goyim la'irech u'melachim le'noiga zarchech. And the nations will go by the light, and the malachim, the kings, by the brightness of your shining. V'samti kat goyim shasayich. Now we're going to talk about again when Mashiach's coming. We're going to make these marbles. We're going to make these stones out of what? Out of katkoid. We're going to see in a second what it is. And Taisus throws in the first Taisus of Elio Amerlan. Elio is talking that this is what happened. Some say it was who is this? Yehuda v'Chizkiyahu b'nei Reb Chia. That what Chadam? It's the Shayam stone, the Chadam Yishva, the jasper stone, different types of stones. It's a play on words. That's what we're saying. Katkud, play on words. That we're going to make it both. V'sharayich la'avni agdach, and the stones are going to be carved out. Ki hadi aser yechim gesiv kagadarish aser kadosh baruch hu lahavi avanim tayvis magolius. We're going to bring these beautiful stones and jewels. Shem shleishim ashleishim, which is going to be 30 on 30 amas. V'chaykav, he's going to carve out Esra, less than 10 or 20. Mamidim Mashari Shalayim. So legal of all of Isa Tamad, there's a Tamad, he started laughing. He said, now we can't even find like a small bird, an egg of the size of a small dove. We can't even find such a jewel. Loy mashkachinon, kula hai, we're going to find mashkachinon, liyam and lamaisif ligos finasa bayam. He went into the ocean. And Chazar Malchei Asharis, and he sees the Malachim, the Yasri Koministri, Avonim Tavis Margolios, Mamish this scenario. Shem Lamed Al Lamed, V'chok Behen, Eser B'ray Masim, and a 10 by 20. Amalu Hani Laman, who is this for? Amalei Shasik Kadosh Baruch Hu La'amid, Lemidam Be'shari Shalayim. So Asik Medav Yechna, Amalei, Draish Rebbe, you could give a shear. Why? Because L'chana Lidrash Kasher Mataken Reisi, like Taka so. Amalei Reiko, Malala Risa, like Mantam, Laglig Al Divrei Chachamim Ato. Who are you already? Nasa Neina Boy, Vinasa Galshal Atzomis, and they explained Dafka Galshal Atzomis, like a Rosh who was Ratin already earlier. You do have to understand, L'chayr, if he was a Rasha, how in the world could he see the Malchei Asharis? So I did see some Rishonim Taka say it was all Chalaymis. It wasn't in reality. So then it's easy to understand, it was just a Chalayim. Frektig Mara, on this kasha that we're saying very clearly that the gates were 10 by 20. Frektig Mara, Mesav Oilich, Eschem, Koimimios. It's going to make it very high. And what is this? Masayim, Amok, Ishtekoima, Shaladam Arishan. It's two Adam Arishan, 2 times Adam Arishan. We all know Adam Arishan was what? 100 amas. So it's clearly 200 amas. It's only 100 amas against the Hechel and its wall Shenemar, like it says. Asher Banenu, we're going to build Kenetiyim, Ugudalim, Binurayim, like young saplings. Binasenu, however, the daughters, Kezavi Ois, Michutavais, Tavnis Hechel. So again, we clearly see that what the reality is. How can in the world could he tell us that it's only 20 amasai? We clearly see the Eilech Eschem Kaimiyos is in a much higher level of physical than 20 amas. And that the Gemara answers, Ki Amar Rabbi Yochanan, no, you're right. Just the windows for ear lachaloinos asuyin la'avir. That sharecha that we're calling the walls, that's 20 amas. But avada, the walls itself, could be 100 amas, 200 amas, much, much higher. Like it says in the pasuk, Uvara Hashem kol mechayin har tziyoi. It's going to say Anon, that's 1. Anon Yaima v'Ashan. V'Noiga, it's 3. Aish is 4. Lahav is a flame. Laila kal kol kavod. Chuppah, kavod is 6. Chuppah is 7. Lamish kol echad ve'echad. Asa kadosh baruch hu chuppah lefi kvaydai. Frek demar Ashan v'chuppah lama. If anything, Ashan is bad. So how can you make a chuppah out of it? Amar Rav Chanina, kashakol mi she'ino tzoris b'tamid chacham. Someone who doesn't want to give a lot of tzedakah. He's not supporting tamid chacham. Like Rashi, he's stingy. You know what's going to happen? When he doesn't do it with today, mismalois, Einov, Ashon, La'olam Haba. In the next Velt, he's going to be in Olam Haba. His eyes going to fill up with smoke. The eish b'chuppah. Why do we need this fire? The chuppah it's going to be burnt. Nichve mechupaso shechaveira. Zakti Gemara. Oy la laisa busha. Oy la laisa klima. What a disgrace it's going to be. Kayayitze bedava taimer. We find this very similarly in the pasuk. It says, "V'nasata ma'adecha olav v'loik al ha'decha." What's the Scheiner shemaisa adar amru? It's talking about Yeshua. Pnei Moshe, Pnei Chama, Pnei Yeshua, Pnei Levana. Again, Oyla, Laisa Busha, Oyla, Laisa Klima. The Rashbam is Masber. Why? So such a small time. Shebizman mu'it nismayit hakol kokach. Why? Yeshua was also a Navi. Still, he wasn't able to get to his covet. Zok the Gemara weiter. Amar Rab Chama Bar Chanina Eser Chupas Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Adam Rishon Began Eden. He made him 10 chuppahs in Gan Eden. Scheiner, like it says, by Eden Gan Elikim Esau Kol Even Yekara. Again, he's going to make these beautiful stones. Medrash Ohr Chaim is really 11. Achatzir Scheiner Kol Even Yekara. If you look at the Rashbam, he brings down also Kol Even Yekara. He wasn't Machshev, and that's why there's an extra one. Amar Yechna Begarua Shebekulon Zahav. If you look at the psukim of the Torah Arts, the last Torah Ar, Be'edin Gan Elam Isa, and then it goes through Kol Avni Kara. It's Aydin Pida Yalim Tarsha Shoyam Yishbe Saper Neifech Uverakas, and Zav is the last one. The Garua Shebekulon is Zav. The Kachasha Le'Lasai, because we mentioned it at the end. What is the pasuk saying? What is the pasuk of Meleches? What's the pasuk saying? Meleches Toivich Min Akvaich. I'm going to make you these holes. You had looked when I created the veil to Virasi, Nikovim, and I made these holes ba'adam. That's why we need the restroom. So we should have another hachikom. I looked at you and when I am a base, the kanasti misal adam arisha and taka like a kever. The Rashbam says this is what it means. Hainu tupech. Okay. Zok the Gemara weiter, my ve'al mikrahel. I'm a rabbi, I'm like Yerushalayim, Shalayim Azeh, Yerushalayim Shalayim Abba. Dafka, the people that get invited. Yerushalayim Shalayim Azeh, Kula writes a la. Anybody who wants to come up can come up. Shalayim Abba, in Oilin, hello, I'm in Zuman in law, the people that get invited. I'm a rabbi, I'm Sidin Sadikim, Shadi Krain al Shemoy. We're going to call it Sadik, and his name Shalakadosh Baruch Hu, Shenem, like it says in the Pasuk, Kol Hanikra Bishmi V'lechvaidi Barasi. Anything that's to be called him a name, I created Barasi Tzartiv Afasis. Amar Shmuel Bar Nachmeni. Amar Yechon Gimel Nikra Shmoy Shalakadosh Baruch Hu Ve'elain Tzadikim, like we just said, Umashiach V'Yushalayim. Tzadikim Had Amar, like we just said in the pasuk, they call Hanikra B'Shmi Ulechvaidi Barasi Yitzartiv. I have Afasis, and I made him and I formed him. Had Amar Mashiach, like it says regarding Mashiach T'chsev. V'Zeh Shmoy Asher Yikru Hashem Tzidkeinu Yerushalayim T'chsev. It says Saviv. The surrounding Shemaina Asel, it's 18,000. V'Shem Yusaviv Yerushalayim Saviv Shemaina Asel. V'Shem Meir Miyayim Hashem Shama. That's the pasuk. Al Tikri Shama El Shema. That's his name. Amar Belaz Asidin Tzadikim Shaim Lefnei Kadosh Kederech Shaim Lefnei Kadosh Baruch. Like it says in the pasuk, Shenemar V'Haya Nishar Betzion V'Noiser Yerushalayim Kadosh Yom Eloyin. It should be that the people that left in Sion and remain in Yerushalayim, Kadosh, clearly holy, shall be said to them. Gimel parsois lamai is going to make them 3 parsois higher. Shenamar, like it says, V'ram, and he lifted Yashva tachtel, my tachtel, kit tachtel, as clearly as its place. When we made the high tachtel plus a parsi, I have had it. We know that Yerushalayim was 3 parsois. Amar Rabbi Amar Li Havu Sabo Lididi Chaz Yerushalayim Esun Yerushalayim Kamaisa V'Tolsa parsi have it. That's how we know it was taka 3 parsois. Big. V'Shema Taimi Yitzar Lao. It's maybe going to say it's very hard to climb up. We all know Yerushalayim is very hills. And that the more answers, Tamalayim Mi Eile Ka'av Tufenu Chayonim El Avriseya. And just like those who fly like a cloud, like the Yainim, to their Shayvichs. Like that, we're going to fly up. It's going to be very easy to go up these mountains. Amar Papash Mami no. Hi Eva, how much is a cloud? Plus a parsi midli. We saw this earlier in the Goyin when it said the Maisa regarding this monster that his neck was 3 parsais. And like his head, we said that this person's head's in the clouds. He thinks he's a Tamachachim, like the Goyin. It's coming from this Gemara. Omer Chanina bar Papa Bikadash HaKadosh Baruch Hu Losses is Yerushalayim B'midi. He wanted to make Yerushalayim tack with the measurement. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, Va'aymer on ana ta'elach Yishakov Va'aymer Lai. Zechariah, we're talking about the Malach. When Zechariah says, where are you going? He says, Va'aymer Lai Lama this Yerushalayim. I'm going to measure Yerushalayim. Leroy's kamerach was here. Why the kamarka? I'm a macha shar stuff in Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ribono shalayim. Haba krachim barasa b'elamach. He created so many cities. Shalumas alayim. Let us not to me this ark and me this rachman. Yerushalayim. Sheshemcha b'seicha. Umegdashecha b'seicha. V'tzadikim b'seicha. You're gonna go and give a midah? Atanis ba midah. Miyad. We saw another malach. V'yayim elav rutz dabel. And now go tell him Allah's lema prazai stays Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim should remain nice and open. We're going to be Meiser Yerushalayim, Elef, Tofev, Gina Ois. There's going to be 169,000 gardens. Elef, it's 1,000 times Kefel, which is Kufei Lam, it's 210 Migdolim, towers, 210,000. Elef, Litzoi is 146, Birani is castles. Elef, Ushni, Shiloi. Shiloi is 345, Tutvai is going to be 4 fortresses, so it's going to be 345,000 plus another 2, which is 690. Okay, and how big was that? Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yisrael, Niri Isi, Tzipari B'Shavasa, V'hayu, but you know how big it was. Meya v'shmoinim elef shavakim shol meicher tzikik there. Just for the pots alone, they had 180,000 types of stores. And then we saw this in the beginning of the Melichas Bais, this next pasuk. V'tzloi tzela shalosh shleishapam, that the corners are going to be 33. My shalosh v'shleishapam, Amar Leimi, Amar Papi, Mishum Yeshua. If we're going to triple the size of Yerushalayim, then it's going to be 30 stories high. We're going to flip it, and Yerushalayim is going to be 30 times the size. Will have Ad Kan, the Gata Gemara. We're going to see a little Gata by the Meishlim, but till now, Ad Kan, we went very, very quickly. Everyone should be zeicher to really understand these psukim to their full Havana. Let's jump right into the Mishnah of Svina, Itmar. We learned clearly in our Mishnah, Svina, which is Svina we know is metaltalin. Itmar, Svina, Rav Amar Kivan Shemashach Kol Shu Kana. Regarding a Svina, so Svina is the halacha of metaltalin. So when could you be koinit? Now we know by metaltalin, money does not buy it. So you need to do a Mashicha. Dr. Ashbam Dabim metaltalin in Mois koinais el Mashicha Rishusai. So either kinichatzer or something. So how you coin it? This is again, and that we have a machlekes. What type of Mashicha? Rav Amar Kivan Shemashach Kolshu Kana. The second you move the ship even an inch, tefach v'chetzi tefach. Dr. Ashbam. Doesn't make a difference. Very small measurements. Kana. Shmuel Amar Loikana ad sheyimshach es kulei. It has to be, for example, if the ship's 100 amas, you have to remove the ship completely. Also, another 100 amas. That the tip of the ship now should be, the end of the ship should be where the tip of the ship was. So the Gemara wants to say maybe it's a machlekes tanoim, lemika tanoim, keitzat. So we all know there's a machlekes regarding, there's halachos regarding animals. There's a behema gasa, which is a very big animal. You kind of been esira. However, a daka, which is a small animal, is kind of b'mashicha. So Zaktamar, Keitza b'masira. What is the halacha regarding a big animal? Achsa b'talfur. Rashi says, Rashbam says it's ragla, it's his hoof, the bottom of the animal. Bisara, which is the mane, it's the hair that grows on the neck. Ba'oka shalel, and the saddle on it. B'shlif shalel, and the load on it. B'prumya shabapiyah, that's the thing that covers his mouth not to eat. B'zuk shabatzavara, they all had bells on their necks. The halacha is kana. So that's behema gasa, behema daka, keitza b'mashicha. How you cut a mashicha? Kair lavi ba, you call it and it comes. Oishe kisha b'makel, you whip it. V'eratzah zelafanov, kivan she'akra yad v'regel. Once we medayik, once it moves its foot and its hand, kana. Rav acha v'amil Rav acha. Some say Rav achi v'amil Rav acha. Someone say it's Rav acha imer. Ache tahalach moilek kamasha has to move all four. So Lema Rav that says Akiras Yad is good enough, the Amar Katana Kama. Vishmul, the Amar Karabacha. So like that, we want to say that's a Machlekes. Amalcha Rav would say, Ana Damri Afilu Rabacha. I would go even like Rabacha, and not kind of like Amar Rabacha, Dafka Babalechayim. The Afa Gav the Akur Yad Viregel, even if he moved its hand and its foot, still, Beduchta Kayom, it's still where it is. Avos Svina, once a ship, which is immobile, the second you move it, Kivan the nada ba'porta, nada lakula. The whole thing got moved. Mashenkin, an animal could just pick up its hand. Shmuel says punkt verkehrt. The Shmuel Amar another Amri afilu ketanakama. That ad kan like karma tanakama dafka ella bebalei chaim dafka animals that what the kiv and the mikar yad v'regel idach l'meiker kayama. Once you pick up a hand and foot zokter shbam yad v'regel nami l'meiker kayami v'kemi shehi oikeres domin. It's like you move the whole entire animal. If you move the whole entire ship, it moves. So mainly we don't have a right to say it's a machlekes tanoim, the scenario of the Balei Chaim. So Zaktamar Lema Kahani Tanoi. Let's try to say a different machlekes. The Tanya, we're going to see this brayso. Svina niknes b'mashicha. Tanakama gets up and says that a ship is nikna with mashicha, full mashicha. Rab Nassan Amar Svina v'oisios. What is oisios? Oisios on a simple level is a promissory note. I write a note, I owe you $100. Now, or it's a chayv, whatever it is, and people give it around. It's like what we call today a check. Now, there's no question about it. There's no intrinsic value to a check. Varaya, if it expires after 6 months, it's worthless. Something like a painting, like an art, something that someone chashav, a president signs it automatically gives it value. People want that itself. So oisius on its own, it's called mili. Words. It's words. It's very nice. It's nothing. It's a davar she'ein boy bedavar shegufay moment. That's the lashon reshbam. Something that itself, it doesn't have any intrinsic value. So what is the halacha? The halacha is regarding a svina ve'oisius, and even a promissory note. The halacha is niknois b'meshicha u'b'shtar. You also need to have a star on that scenario that says however, Zokter Ishbam, Mesira without a star is not koine. We call it wrapping paper. You could take your fancy promissory note and use it as a corkscrew. It's worthless regarding the chayv. Wa'an ayin vavim at aleph, top of the amid. Frak the Gemara. Man dechar oisius. Who's talking about oisius? What's the dialogue? Man dechar shemayit. And a comment doesn't mention a word about oisius. And that the Gemara answers, Chasure mechser v'hochiktani. Svina niknes b'mashicha. Svina vadis niknes with the regular mashicha. Va'oisius, which is Tanakama talking b'masira. Because mashicha is not good enough. Dafka davish of a gufa moment works. Rab Nassan and that answers. Rab Nassan is svina va'oisius niknois. Even a svina is also niknes mashicha b'shtar. So frak the Gemara and the Hamina understood. V'hu then you're going to need a star in the svina. Sok the Gemara. Star b'svina lamali metaltali. Why in the world would I need a star for a svina? Lav hachiktani. This is what it's saying. Svina is good enough. Niknes b'mashicha. Va'oisius, this is Tanakama talking about b'masira. Rab Nassan Aimer svina b'mashicha v'oisius b'shtar. So frak the Gemara. This is where this still lead up. Frak the Gemara. Svina b'mashicha hainu Tanakama. Well, chayra. What is Rab Nassan arguing? They both say the same halacha. That svina is good enough b'mashicha. Elamai de Rav Shmuel Ika Benayu, and that what Rav Nassan is coming to say, Svina b'mashicha. Now it's a machlekes. Interesting. It's a machlekes Rashbam and Taisus. What is Shitas Rav Nassan? The lashon Rashbam is very very clear. The Ka'amar Tanakama Svina Nikas b'mashicha Kula. So Tanakama is going like a Shmuel. The Asur Rav Nassan du Tana Basra l'tefuye the Afil b'mashicha Kolshu. So according to the Rashbam, Rav Nassan clearly is holding like Rav. If you look at Taisus Dima Maschal, the Rav Shmuel Ika Benayu, the Rav Nassan Savala Kishmuel. So it's a big machlekes Rashbam Taisus. Which one is who's the one saying what? Is there Rav Nassan like Shmuel or Rav Nassan like Rav? Ayin Rashbam Taisus. And that the Gemara says, nice. So this is what we want to say. This is the machlekes Rav Shmuel. And that the Gemara says, Loi. They're not going to argue if you need a mashicha, a full mashicha, or not a full mashicha, whatever. Rav or Shmuel, depends if you hold like them. However, they're not arguing regarding svina. You know what they're arguing? Regarding be'oisis, regarding this promissory note that we explained. This is what Rav Nassan is telling Tanakama. Bisvina, regarding a ship, I'm going to agree to you that it's good enough mashicha. However, be'oisius, regarding this type of star that we spoke about, where it's a davar, that ain't no goof a mammon, then it depends. If you have a star that says knilach v'chol shibudei works, loy. Ubepalukta dahani tanoi. We're going to try to say also it's machlekes tanoim de Tanya. Oisios, this is the second brayso. Oisios niknois b'mesira divei Rabbi. Rabbi holds it's when you have this type of star. Isis is cool, it's good enough to be Mesira. However, Ben Kasav Loi Masav. Ben Masav Loi Kasav, Loi Kani. You're not Kani until when? Ad Sheyichtoi Veyim. So you need to have a star and Mesira. So B'mai Ukimta Kerebi. Mayakim Tika Svina Nami Tikna Mayakim Tika Svina Osho should be. We're asking, what do we say in this Tanakama there is going like Rebbe? So for Ektamar, Svina Nami should be also Tikni b'Mesira. Why do you need to have a Mashiach? Why? We're going to show us a price that says this. The Tanya, Svina, Niknes b'Mesira, Divrei Rebbe. V'chachamim want to say, Chamim Aimrim, Laikana, Wainayin, Vavam, and Beis, Achim Shechena, until you bring it to your Rishos. Ach Yiskor, Es Mekayim, until you rent it. So we clearly see, again, the point is, we clearly see L'chayra, Stira, and Rebbe. We have two different brises. One brice Rebbe holds Sfina, and the second brice Sfina, Niknus, B'Mesira, Divrei Rebbe. So what is going on? How could he tell us this Tanakama there? Amnas and Karebi L'chayra. We have a Meferish Stira in Rebbe itself. And then the more answers like Kasha. I'll tell you, there's two different brises. Kad b'Rishus Harabim. When Rebbe said Svina has been Mesira, is talking about a Rishus Harabim, which is a big water. You can't do Meshicha, because Meshicha needs to be in your Rishus. A Chatzah Shel Shneim, a Besimta, whatever it is. However, Kan Besimta. What is a Simta? Simta is something that's a little side streets in the ocean. Again, you're going to have to call it little stuff. We find it when you go to oceans where people put their boats. It's very simple. There, the halacha is you get a kinyan, v'yesh rishos la'adam l'sheva sham, v'harei rishos ha'kter shmam komisha oimit sham liknois b'meshicha kilu rishusah. So that's the chiluk. When Rabbi says mesira, it's talking about rishos harabim. When Rabbi says meshicha, it's talking about besimta. So fraktig Gemara. So comes out the second brisa. It's a little confusing. We have to hold cup. The second brisa is talking about a rishos harabim. That's the teretz. So fraktig Gemara. Which is the second brisa that Rebbe says it's good enough in Mesira. B'Rishus Harabim, you tell me you didn't know what to answer the steer. It's talking about Rishus Harabim. Ema Seifa, I have a problem with the Seifa. What's the Seifa say? Mamish this case. V'chachamim Maimrim Laikana. This is the top of the Amud. Achim Shechena. Achim Sharani. You have to put in those words also. Achim Yisrael Mekayma. So for Ektim Mara, V'Rishus Harabim, you tell me you're talking about Rishus Harabim. Miman Oiger. Who could you rent a Rishus Harabim from? V'su, another issue is B'chlal. Meshicha b'Rishus Harabim mi kanya. Does anybody hold a Meshicha b'Rishus Harabim can be kanya? V'ha Abai v'Rava clearly both say Da'ami Tavai Mesira kanya b'Rishus Harabim. Mesira, not Meshicha. U'bechatzer Scheiner Shel Shneim. However, Meshicha kanya b'Simcha v'chatzer Shel Shneim. V'Agbal kanya b'Chol Makom. But the reality is, what are we pulling out? That Avada v'Avada Meshicha is not kanya b'Rishus Harabim. So how in the world could he tell me that the second brisa of Rebbe, where it says it's talking about Svina Nikas b'Mesira, it's talking about Rishus Harabim, you're going to have an issue of Chachamim, that how in the world could Chachamim hold that Achim Shechena is going to world? And that Gemara answers, My Achim Shechena nami de Ka'amar, Umay Achi Yiskos Mekayim de Ka'amar Hachi Kamar. When we're reading the Chachamim in the Seifa, this is what it means. Achim Shechena Rishus Harabim Simta. Vada v'avada, you can't do Mashiach Rishus Harabim. Rather, what you're doing is you're doing the Rishus Harabim to another Rishus, to which is a Simta. However, im Rishus Ba'ilemu loy kana sheyiskos mekayma. So vada, the way we read Chachamim Aimrim, loy kana yinakayna Achim Shechena where to a Simta. And then there's another case. Ashi Yiskos Mekayma is talking about where it's a third party Chatzar Shel Shlishi according to Taisus, because you have other issues. We're talking about a Chatzar which does not belong to either the Meicher or the Lekeach. On that, the Gemara has an issue with this. Lema Abaya Virava Da'ama Karebi. The way this Mahal is going, when Abaya Virava, they both clearly say Da'amri Tavai Mesir Kana Meshus Rabbi, it comes out it's Shitas Rabbi, which is not Kashmak. L'chayr Rebbe is only minority. L'chayr they should hold like a Chachamim, which is the majority. Amar Rav Ashi is like Id Amar Lechazek V'Kni Kani. Chanami Hacham Aiskina and the Amar Lech Meshoich V'Kani. And Mar Sava Kveid or Mar Sava Makom Alak or Mar Sava Mar Makom Alak. So we're doing a quick 180. We're saying that Avado, we're talking about Mesira works. You know what happens? Our scenario is in a very specific case, where a person said, Leich Meshoich V'Kani. Now the guy gets up and says, Dafka, do a Meshicha. So Chachamim hold, when you get up and you say, I want you to do a Meshicha, you're basically saying, don't do a Mesira, do a Meshicha. Umar Sava Rebbe holds, no. Sfina Nikonis Mesira, even in a scenario where you said what? Where you said, that I want you to go and do a Mashiach Avad, it's still going to be kind of Mesira. Why? Because Myra Malcolm Malay. He's basically telling him, if you want, not only don't you have to do Mesira, if you want, you could go and do a Mashiach. Very good Shmak Gemara. Amra Papa, Haiman, de Mazule, Star Lechavre, someone who sells a star, what we call this Isis. Tzarech, Lemechtivle, Kane Lechal, Huvechal Shibude, Debe. You have to be kind of everything. Amar Vashi, Amisa Shmaitz Kameder Kana, Vamusli, time of the Kasal Hachi, like Kasal Hachi, like Kani. The Gemara is bothered by how in the world could you tell me that if a person sells his $1 million promissory note, a $1 million bond, you have a havmin in the world and he's going to use it for wrapping paper? Come on, more than that. You see he's spending a lot of money. No one in the world would spend so much money for a piece of paper. Lots of lotzer. Zakter Rishban, the last Rishban of the Amid, you have a problem with it? No problem. Bittul Mekach, or give it back the money. But you know what? Even if a person pays for a piece of paper, $1 million bond, and he pays so much money for it, it's regular, Bittul Mekach. Ad kan. Ayin 190 Amid Aleph Amar Meimar Hilchos Lamaisa. The halacha is ois, which is what we're talking about. This mili. Niknois b'misira. You have to do a misira kereb. Amar Basha Meimar Gemara Isfar. Where are you coming from that ISIS is good enough b'misira? Amar Leis, he answered back, I have a tradition. Gemara means tradition, that's how you know it from. Amar Ravashi, Ravashi sticks in, Svar namiyu. I also have a svar to say why you need a star osa. Why? The Isius is mili ninu. What is Isius? Isius are just words. So mili loy miknin. It doesn't make sense to say that you also need a star, it therefore makes sense. It's a Gemara and a svara. They say that ISIS alone is niknois b'misira, and there's no need for a star, because star is just more words than something, again, that's also words. There are two types of stars we're going to see regarding the meicher retracting. He wants a chayzer. As follows. A person, he goes over to 2.8 and he says, Zichu b'sada plani. I want you to take one of my fields and do zachan l'adam shalai b'fanav. I want you to take this field for Ruvain. The cost will a star. And after that, you did the Kinyan Sudder. Dr. Shbam was a Kinyan Sudder. Now I want you to write a star in this like that. It's well documented that I did the scenario. The halach is chayzer b'star. Regarding the star, there's not a problem. Till the guy gets it, the halach is that you could take it back. However, ve'einoi chayzer b'sada. Regarding the sada itself, that already the damage is done. Kaviyachol. You did a Kinyan Sudder. It's over. However, I'm only giving the sada with the t'nai that he's going to get this star, then chayzer, bein b'star, bein b'sada, because it never kicked in, since very nice there's a Kinyan Sudder, but the whole Kinyan Sudder was a t'nai, it never kicked in regarding the star. That's the two stars that we're talking about, the two different scenarios, whether it's amanas or it's agav. I want you to give as an aidus on what happened. There's another case. Shleisha star saying, Trey Hadamra. These two cases. Idach, the other case is Azai. In Kadam Meicher V'Kaisav is a star. A lot of times there's Bama Mas, but a person needs money and he's desperate, he wants to organize and he finds a cipher. Pamushu mites a cipher, he finds a cipher. So he writes a star, Kadeshim Azum and Litnite, like that, you're always available to sell it immediately. So in this case, Idach and Kadam Meicher V'Kaisav is a star. Like we find that it's mutter to do that, even though l'chayra it's mechzik shikra. Still, there's no other hefzer besides this person. Therefore, it's mutter. Even though it's not there, kivan shazaloch is kivan shehechzik zeh bekarka nikne shtar b'chomakom shehu v'zu shaninu. This is what it works. This is what we learn. The chasim. And how does it work? It's going to work with the kinyan. It's going to work with the kinyan with the karka. The what? Nechasim she'ein lem achrayis, niknim and nechasim she'yesh lem achrayis, bekesav v'shtar v'chazokah. The Rishbam's master. What's the kasha of the Gemara? Kasal kadaitach zok the Rishbam hashta. The star is only mili ba'alma nik mikni. That the meicher wants to sell to the kech, and even though what the alpha pisha loy ba star liyad the kech, he's cutting late. So kol shekain la'el, this is the kasha, it should be a kol shekain of earlier, the shtar b'shtar shall work. So again, the kasha is an isis mila mininu. We see from this third case, l'chayra, that it should be a kol shekain, that it should work. And we don't say, oh, it's only mila ninu and it should not work. And that our answer is no. You can't compare the two cases. This scenario is working with a kinyan agav shani. Where do we find? Let's just see this even later. There's a story about Mitzia. Do we all know regarding Beya, Deloy, Nikni Mechalifin? You can't be kainim at Beya with a kinyan sudar. The Agav Ara, Nikni. Regarding, however, if you sell karka along with it, you can be kainim them at Beya. The Gemara brings a Maisa, Ki Ader Rapapa, Havale Tracer, Alfi Zuzi Bechazoi. He had, whether it was Alva, whether it was a Pikodan, he had 12,000 zuz by Bechazoi. Akninu Nahalel Shmuel Barach. Now, Shmuel Barach was going to Bechazoi. So he mentioned to him, he says, I'm going, I don't have a problem. I'll pick up your Alva or your deposit. So again, you clearly see that even though the money, the matbeya is not kinyan with the sudar, works with a kinyan agav the karka. Aknina leir shmuel b'chaza. Agav a sefer the base. He sold him whatever little step of the house, and it worked. He also, when he was coming, nafak la'apik ha'tavi mamish Papa went all the way. Rashbam says it was a makom. He went all the way. He was so excited that he's finally getting this large amount of money. Zok the Mishnah v'loy mocha loy savadim v'esalayis matzuf and loy antiki. So what is antiki? My antiki. Amra Papa Iska de Bagava, which is Permakta Shabbat. It's the merchandise in there. We're holding by the Mishnah, Ayin Zayin Amid Base. Mochar is a Korain, someone who sells a wagon like Mochas a Pradais, does not sell the mules along with it. Mochas a Pradais, he sells the mules like Mochas a Korain. Mochar is someone who sells the yoke, which is the thing that holds the two animals together. Loi Mochas a Bakar, you don't sell the oxen. Mochas a Bakar, Loi Mochas a Tzemet. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, no. Hadam in my demon. Hadam in my dean. You can figure out with the money. The Rabbi Yehuda agrees that a tzemed and a bakar be'etzem are no shaykhis with each other. They could be a mechir b'fnei atzman. Rather, he wants to say that the damim, you could check, you could value it based on how much he pays. Kates and Amalai, for example. Mechali tzemcha b'masayim zuz. Sell me this yoke for 200 zuz. And a davi yadua, shein at tzemcha zuz. It's worth much less. Therefore, it's a raya v'chachamim aimrim. Ein hadamim raya. It's not a raya b'chlal. Ella zokter shbam. B'matana bikeish litna loy ha'maiser. Now you can say it's a mekach toast, but again, it's not a raya. Tana zok the Mara Tanner of the Khalifa by Marava Kameder Avo, and he says Machar Sakaren. Machar Esapra, that's not like our Mishnah. Frek the Mara, Frek the Avo, Vanan loy Machar. Tanan. Our Mishnah clear of Mishnah says loy Machar. So Amalei asked Ravo, he asked me, should I delete it? What do you want? I guess you have a Mishnah against my brisa. Amalei loy, don't delete it. This argument nisach, say your brisa is about duking by. So we clearly say that what we're talking about, that it's attached and therefore it's sold. Machar Satsemen, our Mishnah says Machar Satsemen loy Machar Zabakar. So Frek the Mara. Hey, Chidami. We saw this mamish, this type of question in the beginning of Amaychas Bais, the first half. Hey, Chidami. Samachal of the base. Elim in the car, like Simda, everyone calls the yoke, the baka, mules. Stam, oxen. What's the question? Pshita, Simda, Zavan, baka, loy, Zavan. Elo, you're going to tell me the car, like Nami, the baka, Simda, then Kuli, Zavan, then everything is sold. Why don't you go Basra the Velt? Find out how people use this terminology. Like Tzrich and our answers, Basra, the car, like Simda. Ula bakar. It's a place where they call both of both. V'ekanami, they call the bakar tzimdas. Now what do? You have plenty of people, they call dafka separate. They do some people together. So Rabbi Yehuda savar hadamim aydin. The money's takaraya. Rabbanan savri ain't hadamim raya. It's takanat raya. Frek the Gemara v'ein hadamim raya. If the taka is not a damim, inachanam damim is not a raya. However, why is it so lahave bitol mekach? It should be a clear bitol mekach, like we learn when someone sells a little too much money. The halacha is the wholesale is sold. V'chitem, you're going to tell me bitol mekach l'rabbanon leslu. The hainu they don't hold the bitol mekach, rather they hold that has a halacha of just and you get back of the aina, you just give it back of shtus atzma. V'atanan v'loy v'atanan b'yudaimer hamaycha sefer Torah. It's like Gemara in Bamitzia. Someone who sells sefer Torah behem margalis and amal margalis. The halacha is ein lehen aina. Why? Because those three stuffs, Zakter B'Yudah, there's no way to give it a value. Each person has his own terms. Sometimes you have a beautiful jewelry. You need dafka this margalis or sefer Torah. There's no set price. Each to his own. And Amr Loi Chacham said, no, like Amra Elas Elu. What's the Elu? It's Havadim, Shtaris, Karka, and Hektish, whatever the Mishnah over there in Bamitzia says. So you clearly see that Dafka, those four have the halacha of Ein Lan and No, but everything else, which includes Sefer Torah, Kol Shekin, everything that we'd be talking about, doesn't have Aina. So my answer is no. Ma ein adamim raya nami diktani da have a bittul mekach. When it says ein adamim raya, taka means it should be a bittul mekach. V'ibesema. Another teretz says ki amar abanan aino ubittul mekach bechedei shadas toya. Again, has to use common sense. If it makes sense, then he made a simple mistake. Bechedei she'ein adas toya. If something it doesn't add up, loy emar we say rather b'matana. Yahiv lay, and you have to understand how else in the world would a person give so much money? Elamai, he gave it b'matana. We're on the Mishnah B'ayin Chesem and Aleph. HaMoicher sechamar, someone who sells his donkey, loy machar, he does not sell the caleb. We're going to see in the Gemara exactly what the caleb is. Nachum Amadi Aimer sechamar loy machar. Nachum Amadi Aimer machar caleb. So Nachum Amadi clearly says you do sell the caleb. Yud Aimer, Pamim mechurim. It depends. Kate said, if it's in front of you, Caleb Allah, I want you to sell chamar chazeh, dafka this donkey with the Caleb on it, and Caleb mechurim. Chamar chahu, just sell me this donkey, sell me a donkey, we're going to see in Amid Bay exactly the scenario, ain't Kelav Mechur. Zok the Gemara, Amar Ula Machlaikis is besak, disco, whether it's a sack and then there's a disco, which is a saddlebag. The kumni is a place. It's a little different shape for the isha to go on it. She be ba'ifin sanua. She sat on a side. The Tanakama Savar Stam Chamor Lirkov Koi. The person of selling, the purpose of selling a chamor is for Kiva. The Nachamadi Savar Stam Chamor is Lemasri Koi. It's to hold Masri. Aval Ukuf, for example, the saddle Mardas and the blankets and kilkali and the girth, the chabok and the straps that go on the Devrakam Mechurit. Then about everything is sold. Frekti Mara, Meisve, person says Chamar Bekelav Ani Meichelcha, Hareza Machar Sa'ukov, Vesa Mardas, Vesa Kilkali, all those stuff that we just mentioned as a chabok. But Loi Machar clearly says Loi Machar Sak V'Disco V'Chumni. However, Ubizman Sha'amalahi V'Chama Shaleh Reikulam Mechurim. So make a diak. Time Adamale Chamar Bekelav with the Kani Ukum Mardas. Holoi Amalei. If he doesn't say Hachi Loi. So again, how do you understand the Charetz Mefesh steer that it's not sold? The Mar answers, no, who did Navigan the Loi Amalei? Chamar V'Kelanami. Ukuf from Mardas Mechurin. So what's the Kamashmal? The Kamashmal is the Afagad the other way around. The Afagad the Amalei Chamar V'Kelo Sak V'Disko V'Chumni Laikani. Even in a scenario he says, I'm selling you the Kelov, still the Sak and the Diska and those three things are not sold. Zok the Mara, my Kumni. What is a Kumni? Amar Papa Shmuel, Markavto, Denoshi. It's a place, a kumni is a way for the ladies to sit on the side like that. They should be tzinua. Iboilu, ba'oiden olav, machlaikis is the whole shiloh. This machlaikis that we have over here is dafka ba'oiden olav. Avo b'she'ein odolav, when it's not on it, maiduluhu, nachum amadi, since it's not oiden olav, that it's sold. Oidelma b'she'ein olav, machlaikis, avo ba'oiden olav, Maidule Rabbana Lenachum, when it's not on it, then Avada, when it Ava B'Shein Odol Machlekes, Ava Ba'Aydin when it's on it, Avade Maidule Rabbanon Lenachum Amadi. So let's try to bring a raya again. Where's the Machlekes? Tashma, Ubizman Sha'amalahu V'chal Masha'alav, Harei Kulam Mechurit. So that's our Mishnah, right? Ubizman Sha'amalahu, that's what our Brisa clearly said. When a person says, Hu V'chal Masha'alav, everything's sold. So Amar Bisham Ba'Aydin Allah, Machlekes, we can understand. Hamani, it's Rabbananu. That Rabbana, Taka, hold that even when it's on it, it's a machlaikis, and when it's not on it, it's Nacham Amad, it's even Maida. So that's what it's saying. The Chiddush is the Rabbanan agrees to that. If we're talking about when it's not on, it's machlaikis. Even Rabbanan's Maida, Hamani, it's neither Rabbanan nor Nacham Amadi. So what's it saying? La'aylam, the answer is B'she'ein olam, oiden olam machlekes. The machlekes, Nacham Amadi, and Rabbanan is when it's not on it. When it's on it, even Rabbanan's Maida that it's sold. The Chiddush is when it's not on it. The Nacham Amadi wants to say, even in such a scenario, it's not going to be, even in such a scenario, it will be sold. Rabbanan. The aim of his man, Sha'amalahu v'chol masha, Ra'i li'ayisalav. You have to change it to what? Ra'i. Enachanami, changing the gersa to something that's right to be on it. Tashma. Sometimes it's sold. My laugh. Army Suna. My dekama Tanakama. It's koyin. It's going to Rabbi Yehuda. So if so, it's very easy to understand. We're trying to bring a raya again that he's going on Yehuda. The Gemara says no. Loi. Rabbi Yehuda milsachri tekamar. He's not going b'she'ein oilon olav. Rather, we're trying to say that the machlekes is in between Achamadi and Rabbi. And that Rabbi Yehuda saying, and that the Gemara saying that Rabbi Yehuda saying a milsachriti. He's talking about b'she'ein oilon olav. What is the halacha when it's Aydin Alav? Everyone holds it sold. Comes Rabbi Yehuda to make a diak that even when it's Aydin Alav, which according to what we said, even Rabbanan's Maida that it's sold, comes Rabbi Yehuda says no. Afilu b'shaydin Alav, pamim she'einu mechurim, and it's not taka going on Shitas Tanakama, rather it's going on its own. Tashma Amalei Avina 1 Chesam base. Amalei Avina L'Ravashi Tashma. Let's bring a Rai Machas a Karlin Machas a Pradis. V'tani Rav Techliv Rav Kamin Ravo Machas a Karayin Machares a Pradis. V'amalei Vanan Loi Machatnan. Right? We're going back. We're repeating over what we saw. V'amalei Yasmi V'amalei Tigar Masnicha Badukin Bay. And he answered. We saw this on Ein Zayin Amid Beis. We should say that Bryce is talking about Badukin Bay. So Mechlal, the Mesnisin, the Mishnah in Ein Zayin Amid Beis is talking about Sheina Dukin Bay. So Dr. Baruch, the ratio from the Mishnah in Ein Zayin Amid Beis is talking about Sheina Aydin Alav. Safe us to say the same thing by the Mishnah of Ein Ches, Nami B'Sheina Aydin Alav. And the more answers, you can't bring a raya. You try to say one Mishnah in Zayin Amid Beis. To us, we have another case. Remember the first case in the Mishnah on the ship. That what? So Dr. Gemara, You want to tell me that? Adarabba, Ema Reisha, which is our first mission in the parak. What do we say? Mayan Tika, those mamish the last Gemara right before the Mishnah and Ayin Zayin base. What do we say? Amar Papa Iska de Bagaba, which means the merchant's ice, which is basically we could call it Aydin Alav because it's in there. The Reisha from the first Mishnah and Ayin Gimel and Aleph is Ba'aydin Alav. So Seif and Nami, you could also say the Mishnah Ayin Ches is Ba'aydin Alav. Each their own. You can't try to bring me rayas from one Mishnah by Chamar, Mishnah to Korin, and Mishnah to Svina. Each Chamar, Korin, and Svina, whether it's Aydin Alav or Ayin Aydin Alav, you cannot learn out from each other. Siman and Takat's going to come in the Maskana. We don't have a raya. If the Machlekes is talking about Aydin Alav and Ayin Alav, since the Maisa, we're going to come out like a Chachamim, and you're going to have a Maisa Mechaber of a raya. And Yitaka, as a Lekeach, it's going to be Yadai Ala Techtoina. Siman, Zagam Nasan, Amar Abaya, Rebbe Lezer, Rashim Gamliel, Rameir, Reb Nasan, Mesilchos, Nacham Amadi, all these six. Kulis Riluki, Mazvin Inish Midi, whenever a person sells, Iu, Vichal, Tashmishtei, Mazvin, he sells everything. Rebbe Lezer, the Tanan, Rebbe Lezer, Aymer, Meiches Beis Abad. Someone sells Alf Press, Machas Akarius. Rashim Gamliel, the Tanan, Rashim Gamliel, Aymer, Meiches here, like we saw this Mishnah, Machas a center. Center either means the Eved, Hamamuneh on the Gvulim, or it means fields on the outskirts. Rameir the Tanya, Rameir Aymer, Machas Akarem, you sell Machat Shmish Akarem, Nasim and Sumchas, which you saw in the beginning of the parak, which is the small little rowboats, Beatzits Vedugits, Nacham Amadi, like we just said, Had the Amron, that a person sells the Caleb of the Chamar. Yudayim Parmachurim, or Parmachurim, it depends. If you say Chamar Chazu or Chamar Hu. Frektimar, Maishna Chamar Chazu, Maishna Chamar Hu. And the Rashbam is masber that the kasha is, we're talking about, which makes the kasha very understandable, he says, the Aleka Kamei Shnei Chamayr. We're not talking about a scenario where you have a bunch of donkeys. We're talking about the guy only has one donkey in front of him. So what's the difference if you sell Zeh or this donkey? There's only one donkey in front of you. Amirava Chamar Chazu, when a person sells this donkey, Yada de Chamar Didehu. He knows that this is his donkey. Why is he saying Zu? Mishum Caleb Kamalei. However, Chamar Chazu is the Lo Yada de Chamar Didehu. He doesn't know that it's his donkey. V'achi Kamalei. Chamar Chazu Shimtim Kreneli. If this is your donkey, please sell it to me. But he's not 100% if Bechlal it's his donkey. Okay, we're on the Mishnah in Chesam Beis Amaychis Chamar. Someone sells a donkey. Macher is a siach. Siach is the little b'noi shachamar. It's the little kid of a donkey. It's called a siach. We're going to see why in the Gemara. Macher is a para. Meshenkin the para. Loi macher spana. So again, by chamar you sell the kid. By a para you don't. Macher ashpa macher zivla. Macher well you sell also the menu. Macher bar. Person sells a pit. Macher mimeh sells the water. Macher kaveres. Person sells a high. Macher devarim. Macher shoivach. Machar Yoinim also sells the bird. What's the chilik between the para that it's not sold and in the chamar that it is? So again, what is the chilik between a chamar and a par? He used the lashon of minika. Chamar minika, par minika. Now par we can understand. Para is kosher milk. Chamar is not kosher milk. So para chamar ani meichla. Bichshma pari kalameimar we can understand the chalva bayla because it's kosher. El chamar which is treif my kamala which is menikosh. Mami no when you say meniko you mean the kid he ubna kamala. V'amai karle siach why is it called siach shemahalech acher sicha no. Now we're going to go a little gadita to bring out this point of the sicha no. Like it says, a Meishlim really means the people that write poets, but over here we need people as in a Meishel, someone who could control himself. They make a cheshbon, they start saying, Hefsid mitzvah keneged schara, v'schara aveira keneged efseira. They say that they start making the cheshbonis of living. If you do this, with the hand you make your cheshbonos. What's it mean, Ir Sichon? A person makes himself, he listens to the Yitzhara talks to him. Like this little donkey kilushim. Maksiv Achrav, you know what happens? Ki Eish, Yotze Mecheshbon, that what? Teitze Eish, be Mechashbon, the people that control themselves, are made the Cheshbonis of Olam Hazen, Olam Abba, V'teichal, and we're going to consume Eish, Ein Mechashbon. V'lohava, when it says the flame, Mekiria Sichon, Mekiria Tzadikim, Shenichru, Sichin, the cool trees, Achla, Ermayav, Zemahalach Acha Yitzrai, again, Ka'ayir Zeh, Shemahalach Acha Sichon, no, and then it says, Baale, Bames, Arnu, who is this? Eligas Eruch, these people that are full of Gaiva, Damamar Kol Adam Sheyish Ba Gasus Aruch, anyone that's full of Gaiva, Noifel Begehenim. Vaniram Amar Rasha Ein Ram. There's no Rebbeinu Shalaylam. I'm all good. Avad Cheshboin Shalaylam. Adiva Nama Kadosh Baruch Hu. Whoa. Hamtin Achi Yovedin. V'nasim Anapach Acha Tove Eish Ein Etzriach. And Nipoch, which is fanny. You're not going to even need the flame. Acha Tove Eish Ein Etzriach Nipuach. And then the pasuk says, "Ad midva Acha Tavin Nishmas until their souls are full of agony." Amrila Ad Avin My Deboyi. We're talking about the Rebbeinu Shalaylam. Why? This is one of the answers why Rishaim, they get, when people look at Rishaim sometimes, they see they get everything they want. They're rich, they're wealthy, they have no tzarus. Rebbeinu Shalaylam gives them an Olam Azeh, Hatzlacha, Zok Dershbam Kedei L'Tardam, Ba'olam Abba. Amar Yehuda Merav Kol HaPoyresh Me'Devrei Torah Eish Oichlasu Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, V'Nasati Es Panei Bahem Ma'Eish Yotzu Va'Eish Teichleim. And then the pasuk says, "V'yadatim v'nei Hashem besumi es panei behem." K'aser avdim amri yonason kol ha'payreish atzmei midei b'torah noifel b'gehanim, like it says, "Shenamar Adam toyes." The pasuk in Mishlei miderech haskell leaves the wisdom b'kal reform yanuach. What's reform? Reform like gehanim. Shenamar, like it says, also Mishlei earlier, v'layada ki reform sham be'imke shaol. Shaol we see by Tachnu. Shaol means a kever keruah. Machar Ashba, Machar, Zivla. Someone who sells, that's for the Mishnah. Then we're going to get sidetracked all the way to the next Mishnah Daf Pei. We're going to focus on Hegdish. Zok the Gemara Zay. Tanan Hasam, we learned this in learning Hilchos and Me'ilah. Right? There's someone who abuses or misappropriates something that's Hegdish, is over Me'ilah. You chayv a carbon, chayv a chaimish, and everything. And now there's three madregas in Hegdish. There's Roy Lebedek, Roy Lemizbech, which is the most chashuv. Then there's Roy Lebedek Bais, for example, construction materials. And then there's Zevel, like what we're learning, which is only going to be, you're going to have to sell it. And then that money used to the base of Mikdash. Tanan Asam, Kol HaRoy Lemizbeach V'Loy Lebedek Bais. Or Lebedek Bais V'Loy Lemizbeach. Or Loy Lemizbech, we're just going to see the Zevel. V'Loy Lebedek Bais, Afo Pikein. Mayalim Bahenu V'Masha Masaychan. Kate, so what's the case? Higdish Bar Melea Main. Your person says, I already magdish this barn, it's full of water. Ash boys Malaya Zevel, or Shaivach Malayainim, or Sadim Malaya Savim, El Ilana Separis, the halach is, Mayalim Behenim Mashabasaychan. I will hig this bar very wichtig, Vachagach Nismalamaim, or Ashba, Vachach Nismala Zevel, or Shaivach Vachach Nismalayainim, or Ilam Achach Separis, Sadim Vachach Nismala Savim. Then the halach is Mayalim Behen, Vei Mayalim B'Mashabasaychan, Diver Abuda. So Shittas Abuda is, but Shas Hegdish has to be there. Rabbi Yaisi says, a magdish is a sad. We're going to see what Rabbi Yaisi is going on. Dafka bar v'shayvach or sadar or other stuff. Rabbi Yaisi magdish is a sad. Ves ilan mayalan behen ubigudulayan. Why pnei shehen gedulay hagdish? Again, we have Shitas Rabbi Yehuda that says dafka when you're magdish it, but if it's achakach, it's not. Because Rabbi Yaisi says sad of ilanish. So we're going to see if it's dafka sad of ilan. Tanya Amir Rabbi Nirin Diver Rabbi Yehuda bebar v'shayvach. V'diver Rabbi Yaisi besad devilan. At kan dvarav of Rabbi. Now the Gemara is going to go into this. Hi, my Bishma near and diver Rabbi Yehuda bebar v'shayvich. We can understand. Mechlal the polig asad devilan. He's arguing regarding the sad devilan. Ela niverin diver Rabbi Yaisi. What's he saying? Oh, Rabbi Yaisi is right. Besad devilan. Mechlal the polig b'shar v'shayvich. Rabbi Yaisi sad devilan kamer. Where do we cloud? What's Rabbi coming up and saying? Nirin divrei. V'chi temi going to tell me the dvarav. Debuda come. He's only going like Shitas Yehuda. Vatani Rabbi Yaisi ain't any roye. Divrei dvarav shav Yehuda b'sad devilan. What nation gedula hegdish? We're medayik very clearly. Dafke b'sad devilan udeina roye. Oh bebar v'shayvach you're roye. Now my answer is hachi kamer. Nirin divrei Rabbi Yehuda le Rabbi Yaisi bebar v'shayvach. The what? Sha'af Rabbi Yaisi like nechlak olav ela b'sad devilan. Abavar v'shavach ma'idilei. Very geschmack. Toner bono nikdishan reikonin sonus magdas on the tzandi v'achach malu ma'ilem and me'ma'ilem mashe b'seichen. Rebbe Lezer b'shemen aimer af ma'ilem b'mashe b'seichen. Amar Rabba. Machlaikis is b'sad of Elon. What? The Tana kama sabalak Rabbi Yehuda. Rebbe Lezer. B'Reb Shemen sabalak Rabbi Yaisi. Abavar v'shavach. Divrei hako ma'ilem ben me'ma'ilem mashe b'seichen. Amar Labai v'alad the Tanya. Ikdisha melein, mayelehen, b'mash b'saychen, v'Reb Lezer, v'Reb Shimon, suddenly is machlif hishitasai. In such a case, you would say, earlier we said Ikdisha and reikonin, mayelehen, b'mash b'saychen. And over here we says in such a scenario of Ikdisha melein, which is mayelehen b'hen, zokt, Reb Lezer, Reb Shimon, that it's not considered milah. Zakta Gwana in Tessim base, V beside the Elon, if we're talking about earlier. Hikdish and Rekanin is also the Elon, my Machlif. Why in the world would he Machlif and Shitasa and hold that it's not considered Me'ila? Elam Rava Machlaikis is Takabib Avashayvach. Abba beside the Elon, Divrei Hakol, Mailam Hand, and Masha Besaycha. So, for tomorrow, oh, Masha Besaycha, and Avashayvach, Berekanim in my pligi, Ubim Lame in my pligi. Berekanim pligi, Zaktamara, looked at the Amir Rabbana, the Tanakama, Sabala Karbana, the what, the Amri Ain Adam, Makne, Dova Shalai Balaylam. Verlezer Hashem and Sabak Karmer, the Adam, the Karmer, the Amar, Adam, Makdov Shabalaylam. The Anu Tzamachlaikis, if a person can be Makdish the future. So, aim is Zaktamara, the Shamas, make a going payers, Dakal David Dasi. It makes sense regarding something that's going to come. Person's Makdish this tree, fruit is going to happen. Hani Frektamara, mi Yemer Dasu. So, right away, Taisus does bring out, what's the Shiloh by Bar Malay Mayim? The Tanaim, that's how we drink the water. So about that's going to come. Amar Abba, Amar Rava, Meshkachas Lo B'Mayim, Habayim Derech Hatzer Lebar, V'Yoinim Habayim Derech Shavachal L'Shavach. So it's a Machlekes Taisus, if it's Taka first goes into the Chatzar of the Balabais, and then he's Makdish or not. But the point is, it first goes into the Chatzar of the Balabais. But that's very Konapli. Malay, my Pligi, Amar Rava, Kegoyin Shekdish Bar Stam. That what the Relabs of Shimon Sabel Kavod Damar Donin din Gavaya Medin had so Shiloh couldn't learn how to Gavaya from Hedit and not. Ma din had the Matzama beer Zavinalach Mailai Zavinalach just like by a Hedit. A person can say I'm only selling the pit. After Gavaya I can say I'm not Makdish you the water. Beer Akdish Mailai Akdish Tanakama Savano ain't Donin din Gavaya Medin Hedit. Frek the Marvin din Hedit live at Tana Macha Bar clearly says Macha Meimov. No, that Mishnah Masnisi Chidai the Tanya Macha Bar Loi Macha Meimov. Nassim is the one who holds Machar bar, Macha Meimas, since it's Chida, Avada, Rabbanan Be'etzem, we're going to argue. Atkan. One, the Mishnah, Pei Amad Aleph regarding Paris. It's very interesting. It's very balbatish. The Rashbam is marich exactly what happens with bees. What happens is a person over here is not buying completely the beehive. Rather, he's buying a schos. He's buying the production, we call it. It's like a factory. A person's buying the factory, and the Rishonim and Maz, but more than that, the Chayr should have a problem. How could a person be makneh davar shalom b'laylam? The honey's not even here yet. So they explain that a person, what's going on is that you buy a stake in the company. That's what it means. So what's going to happen is over here is you have these bees, 11 out of 12 months. The Rashbam says that Adar, it didn't give birth. So every month it would produce more bees. You're only buying the production. You're not buying the beehive itself. The halach is mafriach brecher rishayna. You have to leave the first two bees. You have to leave for the mother bee, the queen bee. Why? Because if not for that having the brecher rishayna, which is the first month of Nisan, what's going to happen is the mother bee is going to run off. And so the meicher wants to keep the mother bee because again he's only selling the production of the beehive. So the halach is in the Mishnah. Halakeach pera shayvach mafriach brecher rishayna has to leave the meicher, the mother, the queen bee, with the first month. Peres Kaveres. This is very similar. It's by the oh, sorry. This was all talking about the whole time I was going on with beehives. Sorry, all what I was saying is going on the birds. Right, a person has a birds. The exact same concept that 11 out of 12 months it gives birds. And the halach is when a person sells the production of the dove, of this shayvach, the mother, the yaina, the mother stays there. Otherwise, she's going to run off. Salakeach, peiros, shayvach mechaveiroi mafriach brecher rishayna. That's all mamash the way I explained it. I just said in a bees, whatever I explained, avad in birds. At 11 out of 12 months, it gives birth to chule. Halakech peiros shayvach mechaveiroi mafriach brecher rishayna. Peiros kaveres, whatever regarding a beehive. Naitel gimel nechilim. We're going to see exactly what that means, but he gets the first nechilim b'misaris. What is nechilim? The Rashbam is masber that every 9 to 10 days, what happened is the queen bee reproduces so much that the beehive gets too overwhelmed, it gets too stuffy. He goes to another branch every 9 to 10 days, and he recreates the process. The queen bee again every 9 to 10 days. That's a nechil. And the Rashbam is very meduyik. It says, "V'ashlishi garua mikulan da achron garua." That means to say is the bees get more and more inferior, which is very wichtig for the Gemara. We're going to understand by Misaris. So the first 3 is the best, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. The bees don't produce so much good honey. So again, the halach is peres kaveres. By the shayvach you get the brecher rishayna. By the kaveres you get the first 3 swarmings or misaris. We're going to see what the Gemara exactly what that means. Chalois dvash, when a person buys these chalois, which is these little things full of honey, Maniach beis chalas, you have to leave 2 chalas for the bees in the winter, the Rashbam is masber, to feed themselves. Zeisim lakutz, if a person buys an olive tree, maniach shtek rufiyos, he has to leave the lower 2 branches. And again, the reason is because if you cut those 2 branches, you're not going to be able to regenerate the tree. Zakdamar Vatanya, tell our mission regarding the birds, that a person only leaves the first pair of birds, Vatanya Brecha Rishayna Vishniya, and the Gemara in the Havmina means, it doesn't mean a second generation, means that if a person buys a Yaina, person buys a Shaivach, the Chos Paris, he has to give 2 sets from the first generation. On there, Rav Kana says, Amar Rav Kana like Kasha, Hala Halima. What it means to say is, Avad, the Mishnah is not arguing this Nikuda, that a person buys the pair of Shaivach, he keeps the first pair, he has to give what? His children. The problem is the children also need children, because otherwise they're going to run away. And if they're going to run away, the mother's going to run away. So it's a chain reaction. So for Mara, Maishna ima dimetztasva barta vazuga shavkinala. Inami tisavsa ima vazuga the shavkinala. Mara answers a very simple question. Regarding the parent bird, she has her mate, which is her husband, and she has her kids. So it's 3 people is good enough. So for Mara, who then the daughter, she should have her parents and her husband and a spouse. Why does she need children herself? And then the Gemara answers, Ima barta mitztavsa, barta ima le mitztavsa. We all know this is regular nature, that a person is in much more love to his children than children to a parent. So Zok Mishnah and the Brais are not arguing regarding this point, that Avada, every pair of birds needs to have a kid. So Machlekes Rishbam Taisis, if it goes generation after generation. I think the Rishbam wants to say, once you have 3 generations, then it's more than enough people that they don't need their kids anymore. However, Taisis Ganechnam is going to have to say, it keeps and continuing on, that everyone needs their own kids, otherwise you cause a chain reaction. Peiros kaveris, neither given a chilun misaris. So, for the marbe ma misaris, and how do you do a siris? Amar Rabbi Yehuda mishmol bechardo with mustard. Amar Marava, don't think mustard can be misaris beets. Mishmei Rabbi Yezbech chanina like chardo misaris. Ela mitoich shepi and chat. Since they eat this mustard, we saw this on Yezayin and Ches regarding Rabbi Yisrael and Nizak lahachik etzatzmai. Since their pian is chad chayzes va'eichlis is daishon, they're busy. Dr. Shbam, his mahalach is they're busy eating their own honey. They don't have time to mate, and therefore it's like a siris by default. Which means every other one. B'masnisatana doesn't mean 1, 3, 5. Rather, masnisatana that naitel gimel nechilim bezachazeh. The first 3 are the best. Afterwards, mikan va'ilach naitel achas and maniach achas. And the reason why Rabbi Yehuda says naitel shleish nechilim besir, it's very wichtig. Like I mentioned earlier, the Rashbam says it gets worse and worse. So you want it to be the first bed, the first nachal, the first swarming, we call it, is the best. The set gets worse and worse. So we do it that the Meicher and the Lekeach both have inferior bees and have superior bees. Chalais dvash maniach shtei chalas. Amar Khan, and now we're going to get into a sugya of Tumah. We went through this on Samachei. We're going to go through this a little quicker. The Shittas Rabbi Elazar the Kaveris. That what? Amar Kahana dvash bekaveris. Honey in a comb, in a beehive, any yaitze midei Meichel loilam. That the halach is, it's not considered Meichel. Something that's not considered Meichel can't contract Tumah. Amma kasava loy by machshava. You didn't even need a machshava, because he holds that dvash bekaveris has a din of achila. So again, if you have, how do you look? The question becomes, how do you look honey in a beehive? If it's for human consumption, then it's a din achila, and there's no shayla, it's mekabel tumah. Now there are certain foods, it's not so simple if it's for humans, for animals. Then when you have machshava, you say, I want to serve it to my guest, or I want to eat it, that machshava turns into a din of achila. Once it's a din of achila, it's mekabel tumah. So if Kahana wants to say that dvash bekaveris is not yaitze midei Meichel, so you clearly see you don't need machshava. We clearly have a brayso that says the what? That dvash and the kaveris and the honey is not oichel or mashka. So how in the world could Kahana say that it has a din achila? Bais teretz is very easy. We're going to see this throughout Almond Base. Bais teretz is that this brayso is talking about l'ais and shtei chalas. The first 2 chalas is meant for the bees. So Avada doesn't have a din of achila. Regarding Rav Kahana, it's regular honey. Rava Amar, and the Rashbam says, Wapsha, Rava didn't want to say a Bais teretz. Mishum the stam dvash, loy mash maleish tachalas. Therefore, he had no choice but to come on to Das Yachi, which is Shitas Rebbe Lezer. Amar Rebbe Elo, Amar Bayo, Rava Amar Rebbe Lezi. The Tanan 1 Pam Beis, we saw the Shita Barichus. The Tanan Kaveris, Devarim Relaz, I Mehrek, Karka, Vekaisan La Prusbu. We saw the Rashbam over there. Why by Prusbu have Karka? Because of Laigais or something that's Shchiach. We went through this by Richos. Ve'ein mekabeles tumah memekayma. Ve'roi the menem Shabbos is chayev chatas of tlisha. Ve'chachamim ma'imrim ein kaisan leprus because it's not karka. Veinik Karka Makabelos to Mekayim, but Redim and Shabbos Potter. And Rebbe Elazar, my time there be Elazar. What should Rebbe Elazar say? Like it says, V'yit B'Leis. We're talking about the mati dipped into honey. B'Yaris Dvash. That says V'chimad. It's talking about Yoinason. V'chimad in Yaretzel Dvash. Eloim Elachot to tell you my Yar Toilish Minam Shabbos Chayiv Chatos. Advash so to Redim Minam Shabbos Chayiv Chatos. So again, Shritas Rebbe Elazar that in a Chanami it's a miyuchad that it has a din of karka. Meisei Frektamar Dvash Hazov, which means it comes out of Mikavarta Ein Eloicha V'Loi Mashka. So Bishlama Abaya, very easy. Abaya is the easy way out. Just say it's talking about those two chales. Nicha El Rava Kasha. Why? Because over here it says Zav, so the should have a din of a chila. No, you know what happened? Kigon Shazav Al Gabi Klimos. It never left the din of karka because it went directly from this din of karka, like we learned of Shitas Rebbe Elazar, straight into Klimos, which no one had as a chilur. Honey, if it gets full of splinters, you can't remove it. And the Rashbam says, he holds by klimos, you could easily remove it and take and skimp. Whatever's touching the kli, you won't eat, but the rest you could. Meitzvei, we have another kasha of the Bais Medrash Ohr if you're in chishav all of the mashkin, metamatum mashkin. So back to Gemara again. Bishamala Abaya Nicha. Rava again, you're stuck to Abaya is very easy. Say it's the two chalas of the Rava kasha. On the Charava treats Hachi Chishav Lachilo, you have to put in Einoi. You have to switch it instead of saying it is metame to Einoi metamatum mashkin to Einoi metame tumas mashkin. Tani kavaster of Kana, taka this writer of Kana, the dvash bekavarta metamatum eichlin shaloi be machshav. Now we're going to say that by the Zaysim Lakuts Maniach Shtir Grafriyos, and we explain the Mishnah. The purpose is why is because we need it to regenerate. Taner Rabbanan. Halakeyach Ila Michaveira Lakuts to cut it Magbiam in a karka. You have to pick up in the karka Lisa Tefach. The Kaitzitz Besulas Hashikma. There by the Besulas Hashikma is more is Gimel Tvachim. Southern Hashikma is base Tvachim. Bekanim with reeds, Bekfan and vines, but of Kakelamala. What about the Kolam of Barazim with cedar and palms? Chayfer Masharish. Why? Fishain gives a machlif. There's no hope. It can't regenerate. Frakti Mara. Ubesulas Hashikma, is this really true that you need Gimel Tvachim Beini and Armini in Kaitzin regarding Shvius? You know, do Avaida says in Kaitzin Besulas Hashikma B'Shvius Mipnei Shi Avaida, and Rabbi Yehuda wants to say Kedarkai Aser because it's Avaida. Rather Hezek it's Mutter. So Lamakbia Yud Tvachim, more than 10 Tvachim is Hezek, and therefore it's a Kaitzitz. I go Mim Amaretz or from Mim Aretz from the land. So make a dik Mim Aretz, so Ma'am Aretz, so Mim Aretz to the Kashi Aidach above the ground Ma'alila. So again, we clearly see, how can you tell me you need Gimel Tvachim? L'chayra, anything above that helps. I'm about no. Gimel Tvachim, Allah. Memar, Ma'amaretz, Vade Kashla. Mekam Veilach, Loi Makshi Kashla, Lav, Elui Ma'ila. It's a suffix. The Hainu is like, in between 0 to 3, there's no Shaila that what? That it does damage. Above 10, it does damage. The Shaila is, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So Gabish Shvias Adin Midi, you can only do Allah Chav Avaida Devade Kashla. Only something's for sure going to regenerate it. But kolam of Arazim, the Gemara says, Chayfer Mashar Shafin Gizamachle. Frek the Gemara, is this really true that cedar wood does not regenerate? Vidach the Eres and Gizamachle, Vadar Shabchir Berlini, Mind it says, we all say this in Shabbos. Tzadik Katama Yifrach, Karas Belavani Yiska. Im Nema Tamar, why does it say Tamar de Lama Nema Eres? Why does it say Eres? Im Nema Eres, Lama Nema Tamar. So the Gemara answers, Ilu Nema Eres, if it only says cedar, Veloy Nema Tamar, Hayisayim Ma Eres, Einoise Peiros. So to Tzadik Einoise Peiros, that what? He eats everything in Olam Az and he doesn't get Peiros Olam Abba. Lekach Nema Tamar, to tell you can also get an Olam Abba. Vim Nema Tamar, Veloy Nema Eres, Hayisayim Ma Tamar and gives a Machlif. So to Tzadik doesn't leave over his kids and gives a Machlif. Lekach Nema Eres, to tell you that what? You leave Peiros by Olam Abba and you leave children to follow your way. Mar answers, Avada, you have to answer the Avada B'Shar Mine Arazim. There are plenty of other Arazim, because the Rabba Ravuna, Dama Rabba Ravuna, Amin Rav, that Yud Mine Arazim, and there are 10 different types of Arazim. Shenam, like it says in the Pasuk, Etem, Imam, Erez, Sita, Hadas, Echem, and Asem, and V'chule. And it goes through all the psukim. And Erez is Arz cedar. Shita is Ternesis pine. Hadas is the Hadas, we all know by Sukkos. As it's a myrtle. Echemen is Afarsma. Balsam, Broish is Baksur, Barti, Tidder, Shag is Fir, Visasher, Shavina is Shavina. The Rashbam says Loy is Parish. So for the Marhani Zainav, it's only 7. Kasser of Dima, Amar Sifan Lena, Lainim, Amaygim, Al Maygim. Alaynim is the elm, Butni Almaygim is oak, Beluti Almaygim on, Pei Aleph and Aleph is coral, Kasisa. Ikadamri, the three the Amaisivs are Rainim, Almaygim, Arainim is laurel, Ari Almaygim is chestnut, Dovi, and Almaygim is coral, Kasisa. While on the Mishnah, Pei Aleph, Amad Aleph, top of the Amid, Hakoine, Shnei Ilonois, Besech Sadech, Haveiroi, Harezel, like Karnakarka, and Me'oime Karnakarka. So the Shaila, what happens when a person buys two trees, and Machlekes Rishaynim, if this is totally in the sugyas of Rebbe Akiva Rabbanan of Meicher B'ayin Yafa Meicher, or Meicher B'ayin Ra Meicher. But in Kipshutai, we're going to learn it very wichtig that a person who buys two Ilonis, he's not kind of the Karka. Amir says you are kind of the Karka. Higdiloi, therefore, since you're not kind of the Karka, Lo Yishbe, the halacha is, if it grows into the Rishos of the Meicher, he's not allowed to cut it, because he didn't get the Karka. Lo yikson Dr. Shbam Oisem Balakarka Afa Pi even a scenario Shatzel Ra Lebeis Al Shalchin Dr. Shbam the Kivan La Karka Hare Shibir Loi Sedeyu for the trees. Okay, Va'olam and Ageza. Therefore, anything that comes from the trunk Shaloi. It's his. Yeah, the tree is his. Umina Sharashim, if it comes from the roots on the ground, Shabal Karka, because again the Karka belongs to him. Then Mesu, what happens? The tree dies. Ain La Karka dried up. Ain La Karka. However, this is Dafka two trees, but Kana Shlaishi by three trees Kana Karka. Therefore, Higdila, if it grows, Yishba the Baal Meicher has a right to cut it off. Ha'olam and Ageza, Umin HaSharashim, Shaloi v'Mesu, Yesh LaKarka, because it's partial, you have the Karka. Now, Tanan Hasam, we're going to go through a sugya of Bikurim, which is Mamish yesterday by Mincha. We Mamish is this week's Parsha, we learned Bikurim. Mamish this week. Tanan Hasam, HaKoine, Shnei Ilonois, B'Seich Shechaveru. The halacha of Bikurim is, we all know, you bring it to the Kahanim have a schus to eat these pears. HaKoine, Shnei Ilonois, person buys two trees, B'Seich Shechaveru. Maybe ve'enoi koire. Maybe ve'koire. So again, we're trying to understand that the reason why it's totally two ilanis maybe in a koire if you have karka not. Rav Yehuda, Shmuel wants to say mechayva Rameir. Rameir would even say af belakeach peiros elon. Even so on, they changed it. The Bach changed it. Peiros elon, not peiros menashok. Whether peiros menashok, peiros elon, af belakeach peiros elon, it's still going to get it. So Vektimor, Mimai, where's he come from? Tani Mishnah say you have two Mishnahs. We have our Mishnah on Pei Aleph that says a kind of Shnei Ilonis, and then we have another Mishnah that talks about Mevein and a Kaira. Mechti. Tanelei di Yesh Lakarka, Pshita, the Mevein Kaira Lashmami. No, Mechayva Rameir, Afel Lakech, Peres Menashok, or Peres Elon, whatever it means, you clear that by the Peres. Vektimor, how could you bring Halacha? What is Taka the Pshat? Do you bring by Bikurim? If you don't have a Karka, you could bring Bikurim. Vaksiv, if you look at Mamish this week's Parsha Kisavai, Ashetevi Martzecha, it has to be your land. My answer is no, that pasuk, Ahul Muti Chotzlar, it's a Tali Bikurim is only in Eretz Yisrael. Vaksiv Ad Mascha, says Ad Mascha, no, the Muti Ad Masakum if it belongs to a guy. Rosh Bamus says there's another Ad Mascha for Ger, Vaksiv Hashem Asatali, that you gave me. My answer is no, it doesn't mean, it means to say the money they gave me, I was able to buy these Bikurim. The Havshali Zuzi, now that I have money, that's what I'm thinking everybody Shalem. Meisev Rabba, Koine Elon Echad, one tree, not two. Maybe vein a kair. Why the fisha like on a karka? Different Rameir. So you clearly see Rameir is told and karka not. That's why maybe they kair, maybe ain't a kair. Ma'isa to Yufta. It's very very powerful and it's taka shlug up on what we just said. They may be kair. Amalei Shemel Yakim Leber Lazer. One pay alpha and base. My time in the Rameir be Elon Echot. And my time in the Abanam Shnei Elon. So Rishbam is masber. Since you're not kair, why in the world do you bring bikur? Amalai. Davar Shari Scheiner Loi Amar Boy. They themselves didn't give a reason. Tam. Tishaleni Bais Medrash Ohr. Why you embarrass me? So Rabbah sticks it, he inserts, says, what's the kasha b'chalal? Amar Rava, my kusha. Dilmar Ameir B'ilan Echad Svukim Esavkalei. Rabbanim Mishnei Lani Svukim Esavkalei. So since you have a suffix, right, if you should do it, therefore you bring it, so you don't say the psukim, but you bring Bikor Mitam suffix. What's the problem? Frektamara mi misafkalei. V'aktan lefik shaloi kana karka. Is a lashon 100%? You're not kind of the karka the Rameir. Amy and Echanami, you have to read it. It's not 100%. Shema loikana karka. Frektamara v'leichosh dem alav bikurim ninu. Since it's only a suffix, maybe it's not bikurim. V'kamaya chulin ba'azara, and you're bringing chulin to the azar if it's not really bikurim. My answer is the makdishlu. You basically makdishu with the tanai. You say it to yourself, im ze bikurim, then there's no problem. But if it's not bikurim, already makdish. Frektamara v'abayi michlinu. The problem is they're going to eat it. The kohen, maybe it's Shema Kedushas Damamein, and therefore the kohen can't eat it. Bikurim, you could eat it. My answer is the paraklu. After you do it, you taka, you mimafarik, you redeem it. V'demalab bikuriminu, v'kamafkalu matruma meiser. Again, you have another issue. Truma meiser. Bikurim is not chayv truma meiser. And if it's not bikurim, it is. So what do you do with truma meiser? My answer is the mafresh lu. You taka or mafresh it. So frek the mara, okay. Slow down. There's many different types of trumas. There's going to be one truma we're going to see, it doesn't go to the kayin. Every other truma that belongs to a kayin is not a problem. When you're mafresh it, you give it the entire suffix. So for example, truma gdaila, which is the 40th, 50th, and 60th, Yavle l'kayin. Ma'aser sheni, nami yavle. Ma'aser ani, depends on the years, 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, whatever. If it's ma'aser sheni or ma'aser ani, nami yavle l'kayin. Ela ma'aser rishon, the problem is ma'aser rishon. We all know, ma'aser rishon de levi hu. So leman, yavle, who can you give it to? My answer is the yavle l'kayin, kabbalazim and azariah de tanya. Truma gdaila l'kayin, ma'aser rishon levi, divrei Rebbe Kiva. Elazim and azariah, no. Ma'aser rishon af l'kayin. So it's going like shitase. V'dilma. Bikurim ninu, ubai kriya. You need to do kriya. My answer is, nah, kriya like makeves. You don't have to read the psukim. It's not makev. In fact, the marvel is that really true. Amar of Zera, kol aroy lebila in bila makeves. But regarding the carbons minchas that you mix the dough, the oils vichule. Now it has to hold 60 isarin. Anything that can't hold, you can't mix it. So something called bila. Bila is mixing the dough. So be'etzim, it's not ma'akiv regarding the carbon. However, if you're doing it in a pot which it's not possible to mix it, then it is ma'akiv. So for Gemara, you're right, kriya maybe is not ma'akiv. We're going to see in a moment that kriya is a problem with doing kriya. So once you cannot do kriya, then l'chayr should be ma'akiv. That just like bila, kolorei bila, which is mixing, ain't bila ma'akeves ba, ain't rei bila ma'akeves ba. Mara answers, the avalu kerb yeis b'chanina, the amar bits from a shogron b'yad shaliach, u'mei shliach b'derech mevi v'einikar. That Rabbi Yisrael Chanina holds that by regarding Bikurim, there's a special halacha mitam the psukim that the same person that harvests it needs to send it up for Bikurim. However, once it's two different people, you can't read it. So you know what you're going to do in such a case? In our sugya, when a person buys a karka with two ilongas, you know what you do? You harvest it one person, you send it with a different person. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yisrael Chanina, you either way can't read it. So that's a loophole. My timer, because he says the chsiv lakachta. I should have said vavesa to tell you one page Beis Amud Aleph ache te lakicha vavol keechot voleka. Therefore, again, you're using a patent. Amar Rav Bereder Rav Avila Rav Ashi Mechti Psukaninu Lekri. What is big deal? Anyone who went to Mincha yesterday heard about Kaira, read the Bikurim. Nothing happened. My answer is Amalei Mishum the Mechsika Shikra. You can't compare Balkari by Mincha yesterday, who was just reading the Torah Parshas Kisavai, to someone who comes to the Beis Hamikdash and starts quoting the Psukim. What's going to happen is people are going to see bring this bikurim, and they're going to say, you know what, he didn't give truma ma'aser. They're going to think a person's going to learn from there that someone who sees bikurim is going to say it's a vada who was bikurim, and you don't have to get ma'aser. And really, what happened was it was a suffix, and he gave ma'aser. Therefore, any of these reasons, or kamechsik and meshikra, or a problem truma ma'aser, that's why you don't read the psukim. Yetz Hashem, next week we're going to pick up from the two dots, pei beis amud aleph.